Welcome to this new add-on spotlight. It has been a while, but there's a new add-on spotlight now for you. And we're talking about the Dornier Do 31, which has been released earlier this week. So let's have a look at it, right? So here's the aircraft. You see it's a beauty. And if we go to the liveries which are available, you can see multiple ones are available, right? It's the Dornier E1 Experimental, the E3 Experimental, the olive green, the green camouflage, the Marine Search and Rescue, as well as the Xbox Aviators Club as the Aviators Club livery. So a lot of liveries which are included. You can see the endurance, 7 hours flight, so roughly 970 nautical miles distance. The maximum altitude is 35,000 feet and 303 kitas is the maximum speed which you can fly with this aircraft. Now, if we go to the weight and balance, we can see some nice things, right? So we can see the fuel, but as you can see, the aircraft, there's a lot of, I would say, fuel tanks, right? There's the main fuel tank, then the left bank front tank, then the right bank front tank, etc., etc., etc. So that payload wise, you can't configure that much, right? We've got the pilot and the co-pilot. Those are the only two things which you can configure. And then we've got the center of gravity, right? Which you can modify if you want. Then if we look at the failures, we can see that the failures which are applicable for most aircrafts are there, right? You can see the oil leaks, the complete failure, the ignition, several other issues, likely spread across the engines. Uh, so pretty cool what you can see over here, right? So uh, a lot of changes or a lot of things which can make it more challenging for you to fly. Then we've got the customization, right? Where we see the, let's say, default things. I should remove these ones, right? Because these were from flying the A320 V3 with the EasyJet livery. And here you can configure the tail number, the call sign, the flight number, as well as you can change the wear and tear, which is by default set to 0. But of course, you can set it to be more heavy to make it, I would say, more realistic. I leave it always like this, but it's up to you to change it. So enough talk. Let's look at the aircraft outside and inside. But I will pause the recording for now because that likely will take some time. And it went much quicker as expected, right? So here you can see the beautiful aircraft, right? So we're standing here on one of the, let's say, parking spots at the Enzyme using the Dornier Do 31. So if you see the level of detail here already, it's really magnificent, right? You can see the usage, you can see, let's say, all the details which they put in. So pretty cool. So let's go into the inside. Let's click away the GSX menu. Right, so first of all, you will get a warning which says, please note to perform a vertical takeoff landing, the VTOL, you will need to assign throttle axis 3 to your device in control options to control the vertical lift engines, right? So that's something which is, I would say, really important, right? Because besides taking off normally, this aircraft can take off using the vertical mode, which means, okay, hey, you don't need to drive, but you just go up in the air or down from the air below to the, I would say, bottom ground. But for this, you need to make sure that you assign throttle axis 3 to your device. So if you go to the control options over here, there you will find all your devices. So in my case, right, I'm just showing you this one because this is the one I just connected. But you can do everything you want. And then you can search here for throttle. And if you search for throttle, you will find a lot of them. And here you will see throttle number 3. This is the axis which you need to configure if you want to use that VTOL, I would say, landing and departure, right? So make sure that if you configure, if you want to do that, to configure this throttle axis, else it won't work. Something which is on my wish list to try, but for now I will leave it as is. We will click away this one and then we go to the outside, right? So here we are at the outside. A lot of pylons, as you can see. So let's see if we can, I would say, move around a bit. Let's increase the speed a bit. and have a look at the aircraft, right? So as you can see, the usage is, I would say, it's really amazing, right? You can see here the usage, you can see the design, you can see all the details over here, right? So let me decrease the speed for that one a bit, because else you might see it a little bit too fast. So we start at the back, right? So normally we start in at the front, but now we start at the back. You can see all those, I would say, pop nails or screws, likely pop nails, are there, right? And here you can also see the different, I would say, pieces of, I would say, metal, right, where the aircraft is built from. And if we go really close to the wing, you can see the level of detail also here, right, including this one. You can even, I would say, probably you can measure the screws here, which are being used. So pretty cool. Then if we move over the wing, right, or over the tail, you can see that there was really some usage. And you can also see that the shadow, because the sun goes down, you can also see that the shadow is reflected here very nicely. But also they thought about nice things such as, say, text on this, right? So the level of detail is really amazing, as you can see. Turning it a little bit, we fly over the top of the aircraft, where you can see that they continue to use that level of detail, including, let's say, the text over here, right? It's in German because it's a German aircraft. So likely it's not Dornier, like I pronounce, because it sounds a little bit French, but likely it's something different. So here we see one of those, I would say, special parts of the aircraft, right? And here you can see again, right? You can almost see yourself, right? If you would see me, if there would be a webcam functionality which would show me, then you would see me in this nice reflection. Then this is one of the, I would say, parts which makes it possible to do that VTOL, right? To make sure that you can vertically take off or land. And I would say there are two of these items, right? One of the left on the left side of the aircraft and one on the right. And then we also have some nice things over here. You can see, I'm not sure what it is, likely an exhaustion from the engine. And here you can also see, look at this. It's really magnificent, the level of detail, and you can even look into it. And what you see happening is that due to the, I would say, wind which goes in, it's already rotating, right? How cool is that? Moving to the front a little bit, we can see that the level of detail also in the engines, like this roster, really nice. And you can see the engine over here also. And then, of course, we can go inside the aircraft, but not before we look at the other side, although it likely will look the same. So on the front, we can see the door, right? Eingang, entrance. So they've been friendly, right? So both English and German. And here we can see some more detail, right? So scrolling down, we can see the wheels with all the level of detail, including, let's say, the letters on the wheels, right? And we can see the, say, system which can be used to, say, do the gear up, right? So gear up, gear down, it's over here. And then on the right side, of course, we see the same. So a lot of detail, as you can see, in this Dornier Do 31 Echo 1. So with this, we're going inside the aircraft, right? So let's go inside, because they also spend some time on, say, developing the inside of the aircraft. And it starts at the back, so we're flying back to the with the drone to the back. We can also see the warnings here. And here you can see the door, right, which you can open from inside the cockpit, and then you will be able to fly out. Also, there are some windows, as you can see, which are normally there, and some, I would say, looks like some systems for pressure or something over on the left side, and on the right side, right, these ones. Then when we walk forward, we will end up in the cockpit, right? So it's a big step, so watch out that you don't break your leg. But before going into that, right, here we see some systems. And these systems can be used for the tail doors, right? So here you can change them. However, what I've figured out is that they are, I'd say, currently, I would say, not working, but that's due to the fact that we're in the incorrect view, right? So we need to go to a different view, not the drone view, to manipulate these buttons. Uh, so keep that in mind, that you can't use the drone mode for that. Then here we see all the fuselages, right? Over here, we can see the alternators, the AC power, right? All the buttons over here. And for those, you can control it, or at least some of them. As you can see, right, I can simply would say change this button. So likely also that button which I just talked about in the back, it might not work, but I'm not sure because I didn't try it yet. This is my first fly with the drone in the aircraft. So it could be that you're, I would say, can touch the buttons, but uh, likely not, I would say. Then going inside to the front of the cockpit, there we see the ignitions for the engines. And here you can see that we can switch on multiple buttons, right? We can also control the autopilot, which is over here. So really cool functionality. Over here we see the different throttle mechanisms, right? So we'll change the angle a bit. The throttle mechanisms over here, right? Throttle 1, 2. We can also uh, change these systems likely, hopefully. The yokes. We can change the parking brakes over here. And then here we've got all the fuel pumps. So all the fuel related stuff is over here, including the warning lights for the many fuel tanks which we have. And then we arrived at the beginning of the aircraft, right? Which contains the pilot seat, which is kind of modernized because they also placed an electronic flight bag over here, which you can use. So let's have a look at that one. This one, for those who are, say, familiar with INI builds, they probably know this one, right? So you can, say, control it, but it's pretty limited in this case. However, we can also open the ramp door, right? So let's do that. And we can do the nose probe show, and you can toggle the user manual. So you can switch on the user manual. Not sure where it appears, to be honest. Likely it will appear somewhere on the start. So this is the nose probe. So you can see that the aircraft has now been extended. Well, pretty much, right? This is a nose probe. And if we would fly back, and let me increase the speed a bit because else it will take too much time. You can see that the door is now open and we can fly out with the drone outside the aircraft. Going in again. So going to the pilot's seat. Can decrease the speed again. And now we can simply say click hide again on these systems, right? So be aware of that you can control certain things, but only using the electronic flight bag. Then we've got a lot of buttons over here, right? So let's continue here. We've got the hand lamp. We've got multiple buttons, including the captain oxygen valve switch and the windshield wiper. Some of these buttons are not working, as you can see, but that shouldn't, I would say, shouldn't be a big problem. Over here, we can see all the gauges, right? We can see the gauges for the climb rate, the radar altitude, the max speed. We can see the vertical horizon over here, and here the, I would say, system to show the turn angle. Of course, the speed. Then some more systems, including likely a compass and a radar systems, climb rates. So some of the systems are duplicated, as you can see. This one and this one, right? But it can be used for multiple purposes. Then also here a lot of buttons, including the gear. And then in the center, we've got all the RPMs, fuel quantity meters, temperature meters, and a lot of other stuff. Moving over a little bit further, we find the systems of the co-pilot in this case, which also can control the aircraft. So let's go up a bit because then we can go to the lights over here where we can see the multiple warning lights. The cool thing, I should say, is that you can also see the pitch over here, but also the climb rate over here. So that's pretty nice. Remove that one because we just switched it on. On the pilot side, we can see the same, but there are also some in the center, some compass, and there's the dampers for the roll and the yaw pitch. And on the top, is there something over here? Yes, there is. There are a lot of radio systems which you can control. A little bit hard to see because it's a little bit dark already. But here you can see the controls for the navigation radios, but also the com radios, which are over here. And then here are a lot of buttons for the electrical systems, as well as the backlight, etc. Right, so that's all here, so you can use it. Oh. So pretty nice. But Now the question, of course, is how do you start this aircraft, right? So there's some good news because there's likely a checklist included. So let's go, let's say, in normal mode. And there we can also see that now we have a headlight, right? So we can have a closer look at the radio again if we want, although it might be a little bit difficult. But here we can see this is, I would say, using the light of the pilot in this case. So we can look at some of the systems a little bit more closer. So pretty cool. So resetting the view again. And let's see what's in the checklist. Well, I think this is one of the, I would say, most, I would say, expensive, I would say, or expensive, most detailed checklist, right? And you can simply click on those buttons, right, to go to the systems, and then you can use the tick boxes. As you can see, it highlights the buttons which you need to press, right, in most cases. I didn't figure out a button yet, while quickly checking before this video. So you can open, close, right, pretty cool. The engine starters. Well, this one, which you hardly can see, but likely they're somewhere below. So let's have a look. Oh, here they are, right? So these are the engine starters and these are the ignitions. So pretty cool. So the engine starter box needs to be open, else you can't see these buttons. Fuse switch, right? It brings you to this one, and here you can see the multiple fuse switches as well as the parking brake, which of course needs to be on because we don't want to cause accidents. Then the next one, of course, is we're gonna, I would say, enable the battery. So it was an external power, but now it's on the battery, and then everything went dark. Then we can switch on the beacon, and we can open the engine, which was already done. So I'm not sure why we should do it again. And then we can start the engines already, right? So the engines are started by switching on the master switch for the engine number one. And then we switch on the ignition. And then we can switch on the engine starter one. And then we need to keep an eye on the N2 value. And the N2 value, you can already guess, it's just one of these gauges. Here you can see that the gauges are already changing, right? So the engine is slowly starting. So above 18%, they say. So these are likely percentage RPM, right? So it's above 80%, which is good. And then we can go to the engine and say, but this is the fuel cutoff. It says master fuse switch on. So we can switch it on now. And now we see that the temperature increases, right? So that's good because we want to increase the temperatures. We want to heat up the engines. And then we can say exhaust in range. And that's this one. So the exhaust needs to be in range. The question, of course, is what's in range? There's no, let's say, specific manual about it, but based on the number it's currently on, it's likely around 500 and then, let's say, slowly decreasing. So likely this is, let's say, normal. And then we've got the starter, which is over here again, and then we can switch it off. And then, of course, we can monitor the engine to make sure that it's running stable. Now, the second engine, likely it's pretty much the same, right? So this one on, the ignition on, as well as the starter on. That's what we've done now. Then we can go to the percentage RPM, which we can see. So once it's above 18%, we can switch on the right fuel cutoff switch, which is slowly waiting. Here we go. And then we keep an eye on this one, and it's already doing nice stuff. So once you've done this, right, we need to monitor the engine if it's in range, which means it's likely around 460 degrees. We can switch the engine starter off. So let's do that. And then we can close this box to prevent it from accidentally doing something, right? So once that's done, we can go to the generators, which you can find on the top, right? So we can switch on these items. Again, it's pretty hard to see, but you need to switch them to on in this case, uh, which is good. And then we can go to the engine starter box, also on. And then it will tell you to switch off the engine starters, which we already did. So kind of surprised. And then the fuel pump switches, make sure that they're all on. And likely red in this case means it's good. And then the beacon, which is over here, make sure that it's switched on. Again, it's really hard to see, but if it's in this position, it's on, right? So if it's at the bottom, it's on, else it's not on. So that's good. The cool thing is that you can now, or you could now decide to go to the vertical engine and speed up. But first I want to hear some sounds, right? So let's go outside and let's see if we hear something. So you can see the heat, right, already coming out of the engines. So that's pretty cool. You can also see, I would say, yeah, you can see the real heat. So probably if you would normally stand here, then you would be toasted. But I'd say for now, right, we can see the engine also running. It goes so fast that we even can't see it, right? If we look at the front, we can see it. We can see the lights blimping, right? So everything works as expected, which is good. So let's go inside again and let's have a look at the engines or at the vertical engine startup, because this is something you need to use if you want to use that vertical elevation, right? So you need to make sure that both engines are running, and then you can go to this button which says the Copilot vertical engine control. To be honest, I do think it might be an incorrect, say, text, because why is it called Copilot? I'm not sure about it. But hey, let's switch it on. Then the LED will turn green. Then the engine will start spooling. And with spooling, they likely mean that it will, let's say, start running, which is the case, right? And then we can say, open the left and right engine. So if we do that, let's see what happens. So we go outside again. And now we see things have changed, right? So remember previously when we looked at this, it was closed. But what you now can see is that they're open, right? So you can see the vertical engines are now open, which means that we could potentially do, I would say, vertical takeoff. As you can, if we look at the over here, we can also see it. Probably you shouldn't do it in real life, but this is really cool. And if we would look at the other side, right, they of course would also, would say, switch on. So now we've done that, right? We can go to the spooling part. Cool. This one. We can look at the gouges over here to make sure everything is stable. If that's the case, right? Set the throttles to idle. Well, that was already the case. And then you can enable the required Copilot Assist mode. And the Copilot Assist mode, you will find it over here, right? These are the LEDs which are there. So you can switch on the clutch. It will switch off the hover assist. You can switch on the Stoffel assist, or you can switch on the hover assist. So keep in mind that you can only switch on one of these modes. You can't use them in combination. So beware. And then we can say taxi out and say taxi clearance and do the rest of the stuff, right? But that's for another video. I just want to show you how you can start the engines, and especially how you can switch on these nice vertical engines, which is, I would say, pretty cool, right? So almost ready for takeoff, right? We should remove those pylons around us, because likely, I would say, else they would be sucked up by the engines. And I would need to configure my axis number 3. And then once that would, I would say, would be completed, right, I could take off. But that's for another video where we will look at the rest of this beautiful aircraft during its first flight. So here ends this add-on spotlight video where we looked at the Dornier aircraft. Right, so pretty cool aircraft. You can take off vertically and also land vertically if you want, but you can also depart normally like any normal aircraft. Level of detail is amazing, especially for the price the aircraft costs. So have a look at it, currently in the store. available. If you want it, $15 or €15 if you get, say, between brackets, the cheapest version of Flight Simulator. If you've got a more expensive version of Flight Simulator, you might even get discount and it will be €10. And €10 for this aircraft is really, I would say, nothing. €15 also not, right? So have a look at it yourself and then let me know via the comment box below how you like this aircraft, right? And what you did like, but also which issues you found and how you resolved them. Here ends this video. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you've got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then make sure that you're subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.